I'm Terry Sullivan. I own Sullivan Old Town BBQ in Old Town, Lewisville, Texas. You know, so many people in the last 5 years have asked me what my story is, because we have an interesting story. We opened up Sullivan Old Town BBQ in January of 2020, right before we got into COVID. Now, my business plan was I had a food truck down at Clyde Warren Park, and we were doing well down there. And since I've owned 14 of these restaurants, everybody knows anything about the restaurant business knows that it takes several years before you make money. So my plan was that I was going to take the money that I was making at Clyde Warren Park from the food truck, and I was going to use that to absorb the losses at Old Town BBQ until we got big enough to support ourselves. And by February, COVID was in full swing, and the state was shutting down restaurants and only giving us a small percentage of space to do any kind of business at all. So they closed the park down. Well, there went my business plan. It went down the toilet. So here I was with a new restaurant. My truck was parked in the back lot. Nobody knew I was here. I couldn't promote because we couldn't get customers in the door because of COVID, and we were just burning through money. I remember so many times in that 2020 that I would wake up in the morning and I would literally say, I'm going to shut it down today. I'm not going to burn through any more money. It's because if you could remember, they couldn't tell us how long COVID was going to last. 6 months, 18 months, 24 months. So we had no idea how long we were going to have to burn through money, or if we could sustain while the pandemic was in full motion. Every morning, for weeks, I would get up in the morning and I would say, I'm just going to shut it down and just take my losses and try to do something else. My mother, who is such a big part of my life, she would tell me, she would say, son, just give it one more day, give it one more week, keep moving forward. And so I would do that. Spending money, having visions, dreams. I knew this was a great place to have a barbecue house, but we had to get through COVID. Everybody had to get through COVID. And so many people played a part in us even being here today. The people that were so important in my life and are still in my life played such an important role. But right now I need to pause because I'm still operating every single day, selling a lot of barbecue, and I've got to go check some briskets in the pit. Come go with me. When I first came into this building, this floor right here, this was just a ditch that went from the hallway all the way outside. We had to do it. We had to build a grease trap, had to build bathrooms, and it was a mess. This is our kitchen. I've got great chefs. They make all the magic work in the kitchen. All of our sides, everything's made from scratch, and they really do a great job. This is our meat grinder, and we actually take all the trimmings from our prime briskets and we grind them, and then we double grind them actually, and that's what we use to make our burgers, our brisket burgers, our smoked meatloaf, anything else that we use raw meat for. We grind it right here. This is Zach right here. Zach is one of my pit guys, and he's a wonderful pit guy. And right now he's trimming briskets. This is the start of putting a brisket on the pit. You got to trim it, you got to season it, and that plays an important part of how that brisket turns out 12 to 14 hours later. A lot of people say, why don't you trim the fat off? Well, we don't want to do that because the fat adds a lot of flavor. So what we do want to do is we want to trim that top fat cap down to where it's about 1/8 to 1/4 inch from the meat, so that when it shrinks up and that fat renders in the smoker, it lays right on top of that meat and creates a crust that gives you a ton of flavor. Before he gets done, he'll have briskets piled up everywhere. So this is our smaller pit. We do most of our short runs on this pit, like ribs, turkey and sausage, chicken, that kind of thing. And right now, I think Zach's going to take some turkeys off. So Zach, let's take them off. He's got to temp them out first. Everything has to be temped to make sure it's ready to come off. Everything has to be a certain degree of internal temperature. Every piece of it has to be that way. If we've got 20 turkeys on it, 20 turkeys have to be at 160 degrees internal temperature. And this is our wood room. We use post oak wood. Post oak wood is indigenous to Texas, so there's plenty of it. But more than that, it burns hot, it burns fast, it gives us good, clean smoke. And when you're smoking meat, whatever smoke you put into the pit is going to get into the meat, and that determines how the meat tastes when it's done. So we want good, clean smoke, so it's got good, clean meat. It's got probably about 20% moisture in it. That's a great piece of wood to smoke any type of meat. We get asked a lot of times if somebody has to be here all the time, and the answer is yes. When we're smoking meat day and night, somebody's got to manage the fire. And as you can see, there's a lot of space in our fire, and that's a key. One of the main keys to smoking meat, smoking good barbecue, is to have a lot of space around your wood so that it attracts a lot of oxygen and it can push it through to the chamber where the meat is. Actually, we're creating a convection oven with smoke. This is our big smoker. We call this smoker Bertha. It's a 1,000-gallon smoker. And we just now ordered another one so that we can get ready to open up our patio. But as you can see, we have the same concept, same top fire going in the big smoker. A lot of space around the wood so that it can attract a lot of oxygen and it can push that smoke through the chamber and create a convection that cooks the meat. We run this big smoker around 275 to 300. A lot of people run it lower at 250. Some run it at 225 of their smokers. And there's no perfect way to do it. It's how you can create a great product. But I run my smoker around 275 to 300, smoke it a little bit quicker, cook it a little bit quicker because I believe that the fat renders a lot better at that high temperature. We've got about 20 briskets in this smoker right now, and we'll sell all of those briskets plus a few more tomorrow. Let's go back inside. How's it going? So here I am in 2020 thinking that I just blew any money that I had. And I was sitting out on my patio one morning, and I remembered what my dad said. My dad was a wonderful Christian man, greatest man I've ever known. And my dad used to always teach us that if you want to get something back, you have to give it away. And I got to thinking about that. Okay, it's the law of sowing and reaping. The world calls it karma. The world calls it what goes around comes around. The Bible calls it sowing and reaping. And that spoke to my heart. Felt like my dad was talking to me. So I came up with this idea to put a bucket on our counter and call it whatever. And what that meant was, no matter what situation you were in your life, at that particular, in 2020, people were losing jobs. Mothers couldn't feed their kids. Fathers couldn't feed their kids. I mean, people were really hurting. You remember, it was chaotic. So I decided, well, if we can't sell it, let's just give it away. So we created this whatever bucket, and I just put it out there that you could come to the restaurant and whatever you had in your pocket, whether it was a dime, a dollar, or $10, just come on. You could drop it in the whatever bucket and we were gonna feed you. And we would feed you a sandwich, a bag of chips, banana pudding, and a bottle of water. Couldn't beat it. And all of a sudden, like overnight, we were feeding a lot of people. A lot of people were hurting. We were giving a lot of food away. I remember my mother saying, son, you gotta stop giving it away. I remember my banker saying, you can't just give it away. I remember, but I kept thinking, no, this is a God principle. It's a God principle. Give and you'll receive. So we were giving it away every single day. And there were lines of people coming to get it, dropping whatever they had. That story started traveling through social media, and people began to help. Customers would come in and they would buy food and pay it forward. They would pay enough food for 2 or 3 other people to eat. This was a great blessing. And then all of a sudden we had a family from Colorado that called and wanted to give us a large sum of money to support that program. This is just how God works. Can't outgive him. Then we had a family from New Jersey call and want to give us a lot of money to support the program. It was because of that program and people who supported us daily. We had people that would eat here every day. Nobody can eat that much barbecue. Nobody. We had people like C. Wayne Nolan and Daryl and Jerry and Floyd and so many others that would come every single day and eat. And I would tell them, there's other restaurants in the area, go eat something else. They said, no, we're gonna come here. We're gonna support you. We're gonna make it through it. They were my backbone. They held me up and they pushed me forward. Let me grab the bucket. I still have the whatever bucket. We don't use it anymore. Thank you, Amanda. But this was the bucket. It said on the counter. You know, I remember back in those days, I had a girl working for me. Her name was Erin T.G. Erin started with me. Her dad did all the electrical in the building when we were renovating. Good friends for a long time. Still are. And I remember back in those days when we were doing the whatever bucket, I remember nobody would come in the door to buy, really. I mean, we'd have a few, some of the old timers come in, and we'd have a lot of people come in for the whatever bucket. But I remember when new customers would come in, Aaron and I would jump up and down because we had a customer. We'd get all excited, and it was exciting. I remember back in that day that if we went through one brisket a day, we were so excited. We thought we had arrived. One brisket a day. Now we go through 20 to 30. At that time, the government, the state, they were encouraging senior citizens to stay home. So we decided to do a program called Texas BBQ for senior Texans. And we decided to take it to them. So we would pack up every Wednesday, and Erin would pack up her car every Wednesday. Rob, a good friend of mine, would pack up his car, and they would take meals to senior citizens, to their homes. And you know, the senior citizens got to where they counted on it. They couldn't go out and eat. So they counted on us to be there. I remember so many times our people would come back with tears in their eyes because senior citizens would wait on their porch for them to bring barbecue to them. What a great blessing. I know we were a blessing to them, but in return, they were a blessing to us. I don't know, we were taking 60, 70, 80 meals a week to these people. Now, let me tell you how that turned out, talking about God. And you don't think about these things. It's just the way that God works it out. In 2021, when the state took away the bans and we could operate as a restaurant, all of a sudden we had a bunch of senior citizen grandchildren, and they came to the restaurant to thank us for feeding their grandparents or feeding their parents. And so many of those people still come. A lot of those senior citizens would come and just be thankful for us bringing barbecue to their house every week for months. But this is the bucket, and it kind of became famous. This bucket right here sustained us and pushed us forward. Well, this is what it's like today. It hadn't always been like this. I remember back in COVID when we were excited to have one person in here, but today we're excited to have a restaurant full of people, and at least most of them. This table here, a little questionable right here, but we're gonna let them stay anyway. But we're thankful that we have a full restaurant today because we remember the days that we didn't have it at all. You doing all right, honey? Did you got all that left over? Good Lord. Well, that's just beautiful right there. Gotta love smoked ribs. We trim them down and we smoke them for about 7 hours. And we sell a bunch of them. I think today we've gone through almost 60 racks of ribs. Don't come in tonight, we're tired of cutting. Even sometimes,
give people grief.
Yeah, even sometimes we have the mayor of Lewisville come in. Usually he comes in by himself because his family's too embarrassed to come in with him.
I mean, it's true. It's absolutely true.
But tonight he's got his wife Tanya with him, and she makes him look good anytime she's with him.
Always. Better 2/3.
And then the kids are with him. I don't know. The only reason they're here is because he's buying. Mayor said, let's go to Sullivan's. And they said, are you buying? He said, yeah. He said, let's go.
Yeah, that's how it went. That's how it went. Good to see you, Terry.
Good to see you. But we're always happy to have a full house on Friday nights, and it's always that way. These days, we have a lot of customers that remember the days that we did not have a full house. We have a lot of customers that remember the days when there were only a few people in here, and we had no idea if we were going to be open the next day or not. But we're grateful to God for allowing us to grow and to be able to experience these kind of houses. That chicken right there, we smoked it for about 3.5 hours. Then we put a little habanero peach glaze on it. I'm gonna tell you right now, that right there, you can't even eat. Sitting next to people, you start slapping people trying to eat that right there. That's how good it is. It's right here, it's Monica. Let me tell you, she employee of the month. Now listen, here's the deal about that. She was the only one on the ballot, and she was the only voter. So
Win is a win, though.
win is a win. That's what the Cowboys say right there.
Yeah, win is a win.
Wow, what a Friday night. It's one of those Friday nights where every time you look up, you think the line's gonna be shorter, but it's still to the door. We love those Friday nights though. We're about to shut it down. It's almost 8 o'clock. It's almost time to close. And at the end of the night, we are just tired and we're ready for tomorrow. I think that's all for today.